Today on the Failing Up podcast, we have Lauren Garner, CEO of Top Ops. She discusses learning from past mistakes and fostering an environment where failures are seen as opportunities for improvement. She emphasizes the importance of facing failures head-on and supporting team members through challenges, highlighting the value of loyalty and resilience in leadership. Let's jump in.
Welcome to another episode of the Failing Up podcast, humble lessons in life and business. My name is David Huffaker. I'm your host. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Bethany Voice. Bethany, welcome.
So excited to be here. Another great episode today.
Another one. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We've had a great cast this season and last season, right? I had a chance
sure.
to go back to listen to some of the episodes of last season. There's so many nuggets in there.
I love it.
I love to listen at I can hear my fears and anxiety and what I say and what's going on in my life right then.
Yeah.
And so it's funny now to listen back and be like, yeah, what a sissy.
Well, I had someone
up.
ask me about the podcast recently, and I was like, the best thing that we've gotten is we get to hear so many unique stories, things we didn't necessarily know about some of the guests coming on. And to your point, right, it's weirdly always speaks to my own life. So a great lesson.
I think it's neat that I've said this a few times this season, knowing that we all experience the same fears, right? Knowing that we all experience this. It's just not that I want everybody to be, worried with me, but it's nice to know that we're kind of all in it together.
Exactly.
Right? And we all, I'm normal, if you will, right? Maybe that's the validation.
It's normal to be worried and scared. Okay, got it.
I think when
Perfect.
building businesses and leading people well, right?
Absolutely.
Like you have to have some sense of that. So want to introduce our amazing guest today, Miss Lauren Garner. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The CEO of Top Ops. You do a phenomenal job with that. In fact, it's funny on the way here or preparing for our podcast this season, I actually was listening to your coach, Nicole, on one of our episodes last season. And so we were singing your praises a lot in that. I realized
it's
how
my
far
favorite
you've
episode.
come.
I have it bookmarked.
I bet it was. Well, take a second, introduce yourself to our audience and our guests that may not know you.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Lauren Garner. I am the CEO and co-founder of Top Operations. We are a real estate operations company that empower other real estate organizations to leverage their admin staff and their time.
Yeah.
And I also wear another hat as the director of operations for the Huffaker Group, which is an expansion organization under the Keller Williams umbrella.
That's right.
Yeah.
We all get to wear lots of hats, build lots of businesses. One of the things we've heard from some of our guests today is about that leverage, right? And I always come back and kind of think about the ability to take all the stuff we're bad at as agents, right? The paperwork and the follow-up and the crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and hand that over to you, to me, is like worth its weight in gold, especially for you. You really charge a very competitive price, but it's really more about the referrals and the 5-star reviews and what you're doing along the way. In addition to kind of crossing those T's and dotting the I's, you're going to get on to me, but I haven't told you yet, but I put a listing in the MLS myself yesterday. And we have no paperwork, and we and I'm going I am such an agent.
None of the T's are crossed, none of the I's are dotted.
So
I won't tell your broker.
we may have to have a conversation later. I need some help.
Yeah, the paperwork will be done before this episode gets out, so it's fine.
That's right. So you get to experience a lot of agents' failure, and as we talk about failing forward, both in business and how we're growing.
Yeah.
What does failure mean to you? Where do you see it showing up in your life most often?
Yeah, I think failure has obviously been, my perception of failure has definitely evolved over the years, right? I think I look back to in reflection of when I first got into the industry a little over 10 years ago, failure was shame and followed by hiding, followed by guilt of hiding, right? Of the mistakes that come along with that. And I think in my previous roles, just not being given the ability to lean into those failures really stunted my growth, I think. And so today, failure is, it's anchored in the culture of our organization, failing forward, not being afraid to lean into that. And for myself, I can see how that's changed in my growth and my trajectory, right? And how I'm...
In what way? Where do you, because I know a lot of times we say that, and it definitely shows up in our business when we have a little bit more freedom there, but also outside of our business. Where do you see it? What changes have you picked up on?
Yeah, I think in business, right? Every day, not being afraid to own those failures and speak about them, to learn from them, and come to you, right? I think you do a great job of giving us the opportunities to lean into those failures and learn from them. And then I do see that bleed over into my personal life as well at home. Coming home and say, man, I know I didn't get it right today. What can I do to get better in my marriage as a mom? It really just, it's really just like, I think, afforded me those opportunities to lean into that instead of push it down and not look it straight in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big piece, right? Being willing to face our failures, being willing to come. A lot of people drive their whole life avoiding that, right? And it leads to alcoholism, and it leads to drug abuse, and it leads to all these things because you just don't want to have the real conversation with yourself that, like, maybe I'm not perfect, right? Like, maybe I didn't nail it. In my case, like, maybe I'm never nailing it, right? And I love what you've said in the past, like you and Rowan and Brinkley, and like your kids, asking them their opinion, like, how am I doing, right? Grade me, right, on this. How's that going?
Family performance review.
Love
which,
that.
Is sometimes, humbling experiences if you ever want to take that one home, right? And some of them are really funny, but and some of them are really legitimate, right? I think if you can own from the top that I'm not going to get it right, it gives them the freedom to own that they're going to mess it up and that we're all working together as a family unit to create a better environment that we all get to participate in, right? As equal partners in owning the family. And I didn't have that as a kid, right? And I know you and I have, we get to talk offline a lot about that and how that shows up in our personal lives too. And seen that similarly, right? Connected over that with Finn and as a mom. I also know for you in the admin world, we talk so much about failure and mistakes. You are in the business of details, right? That is what you promise on Top Ops. We're going to get the details right, and there's human error. So how do you handle that disappointment or owning it now on this mass level with this company that is Top Operations that services so many agents, so many teams? How does that show up of still owning the failure, still growing from it day in and day out?
Yeah, I think you learn from every single transaction, right? What are the stop gaps that we can put into place the next time so that that failure doesn't happen again? And you have to always lean into that feedback and know that we're here to improve, we're here to grow, and opening that conversation with your clients as well from the very, very beginning when you're setting those expectations. Like, we know we're not going to get it right, and help us, help us help you, and we're going to go back to the drawing board at any time that we feel like we need to serve you better as an agent and our clients.
Well, I think that feedback loop's important, right? The fact that you do ask your clients to provide feedback after every transaction, so that there is this learning process. As a leader of people, right? As a leader of a company, do you believe it helps with retention? Do you believe your people feel that same openness to fail, or to know that, like, all right, we're going to make mistakes, but then also if you see the same mistakes happening over and over again, then all of a sudden you kind of go like, well, we've got to learn, right? We've got to grow from it. It's okay to fail. Making the same failure over and over again maybe opens up some questions to other things. But how do you see that in leading people?
Yeah, I hope that, that's my hope, right? In leading the team is that they walk away from each one-on-one that we have each week empowered to own their roles more and to come to me with, hey, this happened this week, and what can we do to work together to make it better? So.
Do you have any specific instances? One of the things we try to ask in order for our listeners to be able to learn is, if you look back over the last few years, was there this moment where you're like, oh man, like I totally botched this, right? Like total failure, and you're like not going to recover. And yet maybe you were able to grow from it or learn from it. In hindsight, maybe it wasn't as bad as you originally thought it might be.
Yeah.
Any personal, professional, whatever you want to share for help people on their journey.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that earlier because I just kind of looking at the stark difference of like the environment that you're in, right? And looking at my past experience, like hiding shame, guilt of the failures. And I'll never forget, it was probably my first month, and I don't even know if you know this, but my first month on the job, we missed an inspection deadline. And
it's still noted.
Yeah. Is it in my employee? It might be in my employee file.
We actually have
I don't know. So, we missed an inspection deadline. It was on me. It was on the agent, right? Both of us. And I kind of reached this point of like, I can't hide this one. Like, we're going to have to do something for the betterment of the client, for their situation, right? And so having to go to Phil, our director of sales, and say, I messed this up, right? And it was, that was the first lesson that I had, I think, in extreme ownership. And, this was on both of us, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna be in the agent, right? But I'm gonna take the fall for this one. We're gonna make it right. And the response that I received from that was like, hey, it's okay. What can we do to learn? It wasn't, this is going on your employee file, and we're, and this is a mark. And so I think that was my first lesson in, okay, it's okay to fail as long as we put the things in place afterwards. And I think that just honestly was my trajectory into growing within this organization was, okay, I can face my failures head on. What can I do to fix them at the end? And then, and knowing that the environment and the people that I'm surrounded with are going to lean into those failures with me. It wasn't this, you're fired.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think if you're leading a company, right, it's mistakes are going to happen, right? And always say, like, don't judge me off my mistakes, judge me off of how I respond once I realize I've made a mistake. And as a business owner, right, if you're running a business out there, I encourage people to have a line item, right, a budget for, these things are going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to, I've written many checks for our boneheaded decisions, right, as a company, where we just go like, right, like, yep. To the point of even offering in some cases to buy someone's house for them or whatever, or from them. Yeah. If that's ultimately what it comes down to, thankfully it never has. But again, if you're gonna play, right, you're gonna screw some things up and botch it a few times. And so I think what I'm always amazed at in leaders is this perception that, like, oh, you made a mistake, therefore you're not the one. I'm now gonna go find the one, and it's like, you're gonna go find the perfect person. Right? It's just not going to happen. And so a lot of times my coaches have always said, like, you're so loyal to your people, but I go like, well, as long as you're loyal to me, right, and we're loyal to each other, and the fact that we're on this journey together, I'm going to screw it up more than any of you. So I don't ultimately worry about that. It's like, can we move? And that to me is talent, right? That's where we're able to have relationships with each other to go, all right, so what now what, right? Like, all right, we got to this point. How do we grow from it? Can we put a system or model in place in order to stop it from happening in the future and things like that? So, so yes, and we hear that story a lot, right, from people as they fail. I hope that if you're newer on your journey or in your career, that you give people grace, right, that you give people space to confess, right? Because I do think the scariest part is, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? And we talked about earlier, right? Like, it's easy now to kind of sit here and go, yeah, you fail and you blah, 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 because we have this somewhat of a safety net under us at this point in life. And yet early on, right, if you're not in that environment, maybe you should recognize that if you're being chastised or abused or treated poorly, but I'm not saying mistakes should go unpunished, right? There should be conversations around them. But I hate the thought that so many people get up and go to work every day and loathe the environment they're in, right? And just are not satisfied. I mean, you spend so much time together, right?
Yeah.
In that. So where do you see mistakes showing up? And from the outside looking in for real estate agents, where are real estate agents making the most mistakes that hinder themselves from growing?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it has to be not utilizing leverage in their business and not focusing on what they're good at, right? And trying to get into the details of paperwork and compliance and all of the things that agents just aren't good at, right? We do see that show up so often where it's like, oh, I was trying to help, or I was coming into and it's like, no, let us do what we do, and let us own this piece, so that you can go out and do what you're good at, right? I always say, like, I've never wanted to be in production sales. I'm learning, right? And it's not my thing. My thing is details and customer experience, and so
Well, I think agents believing that you're going to be the best at everything is foolish, right? That's your own ego getting in the way of like, it has to be me, or I have to do it all, or I have this control piece that I have to, and it's, you kind of go, well, there's no way you can provide a phenomenal customer service experience and control every step of the process, right? Somewhere there's just a conflict. What I encourage agents on the flip side of that, if you're a leader or you're an agent and you're using leverage, your leverage is going to make mistakes, right? Think that because I'm paying another company to do something, when I think of leverage, I think of I'm buying my time back, right? So we talk about Dan and buy back your time, and it's ultimately 80% done to 100% awesome, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from him is that 80% done 100% is 100% awesome, because I think agents look at leverage and think, oh, well, you're doing all of this and it has to be perfect. I look at it and go, I don't necessarily care how it turns out, because I just got my time back to go do what I'm good at, which is call people, get into relationships, hold appointments, the things that drive my bottom line, right? Staying in my 20%. And I think there's a huge disconnect in our industry of like why that's valuable, right? They think, oh, I'm paying you a fee. They get into the details of how you're doing it versus going, I don't really care. Like, you go do it. I'm going to trust that you're going to do it with 80 to 90% efficiency.
Yeah.
Because I get to go do this and focus on my time. I hope that people hear that and recognize that, like, as much as we hear how other people fail, like, give people space to fail. Your company's going to make some mistakes sometimes, right? Sure. And you're going to own it, and you're going to deal with it, and you're going to make it right, whatever that takes. The agents need to go out and get in their strength zone, right, and really focus on what they're good at.
Well, and some of us are trying so hard to control every single piece that we miss out on actually owning the business, because we're so deep and this must be me. Like, to your point, I have to be all things to all people. And so then I don't get to be the CEO and actually run with it. Lauren, I know you guys provide some of the best leverage in the country, and you are really passionate about serving your clients at the highest and best level so they can go own the business they want. If someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they get connected with you and ask more questions about what you can do for their business?
Yeah, absolutely. They can find us at top-operations.com, or they can email me at info@top-operations.com.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, so last question. You're done with this life, right? Like, you've experienced everything you wanted to experience, and you're looking back. What are some regrets that you're concerned you might have, or that you're trying to think about now to prevent?
Yeah. I think just being intentional about my relationships, whether that's personally, professionally. I may have every intention, right, of being the best mom, the best leader, the best coworker, but I think the regret that I have, or that I fear that I will have, is that I didn't get into action sooner, and even just with baby steps, right? Sending my dad a birthday card. His birthday's tomorrow, right? I need to go put that in the mail. And, just the small things like that tend to be overwhelming and add up, but just taking the baby steps and the actions to lean in and be intentional with my relationships.
Yeah, I think as with most people at a high level, you intend, or you have the best intentions on who you want to be. It's not, I always say, it's not a lack of thought, it's a lack of action, right? We talk about that in terms of the gym, right? Like, I know how to get a six-pack of abs. I don't have the environment and the behavior in order to drive it. I do think in business sometimes, especially when it comes to family and friends and things outside, we leave it all on the field all day long with what we do. And so you hit this exhaustion point by the time, and you meant to be better, right? You mean well. And so I always encourage, you can't do anything without a plan, right? And with that plan becomes certain steps you can take. And so are we creating those plans around our family? Are we creating those plans around our spirituality, around our physical life, right? So it's not just, we all have gotten pretty good at creating plans around business and activity and production. Having those plans around the other buckets of our life, because as the story goes, right, like, everything else, work will bounce back. Like, it's a rubber ball, right?
Yeah.
Everything else is glass. And so I want to make sure we're leaning into that.
It's my favorite analogy. I have a GPS for business and a GPS for my personal life as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I've loved to see your growth and development. So kudos to you. It's been fun to watch and continue to watch. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep.